That's who you are. God, God, you never change. God, God, that's who you are. Say you are.
The only definition
Of a God, no comparison with you.
it all starts and it ends.
Say you are, yes Lord, definition of a God, no comparison with you.
It all starts and it ends.
Here we go. Say God, God, that's all I can say. Whoa. All I have to say. God, God, that's who you are. Oh, God, God, you never change.
Remain the same.
My God, that's who you are.
That's who you are.
God, God, that's all I can say.
All I have to say.
God, God, that's who you are. That's who you are. Nobody else like you. God, hey, you never change. Quanto prato, you
Hello, my fellow Nigerian countrymen from around the world. My name is Mr. Ekeleme Wadiche Okbechi Ukumune. I am one of the originators of this wonderful platform, the One Nation, One Voice platform. I have a vision for this wonderful country. Think about it. In every state, we have a plethora of untapped mineral resources. We don't just have oil. We don't need to be dependent on just oil. And on top of that, we have an engine room that most nations, especially Western nations, would be jealous of. We have 200 million people who are ingenuitive, inventive, hardworking, and entrepreneurial. And they are aged between 18 to 35, at least 65 to 70%. I say it again, most nations would be most envious of that fact. And this is the reason why I have such a vision, because I know that even though we are multiple tribes, multiple languages, I know that if we stand together, even with those multiple religions, if we stand together and work together, we can make Nigeria an economic superpower. And I say it again, we can make Nigeria an economic superpower. We have been given everything. All we need now is to come together and work together. And that's the reason why I launched this platform, because I want all of you from around the world to participate with me, to discuss with me, to pose questions, to answer questions. Let's do it as one people, having one vision, one goal. We are not the only country that has done it. And I say has done it because we're going to do it. Switzerland has managed to do it. They've got multiple religions and they have multiple ethnic groups, and they have managed to stand as one and be a prosperous nation. China has managed to do it. They have multiple languages, again, multiple ethnic groups, even though you probably think they're all Chinese, multiple ethnic groups, multiple dialects, 1.2 billion people, and they have managed to do it. India has managed to do it. Multiple religions, multiple ethnic groups, multiple tongues, and there are 1.1 billion people, and they have managed to do it. It's time for us as Nigerians to rise. Hence the reason for this platform. Let's join together, let's work together, and let us make Nigeria great. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. It may even be good morning. Welcome back to One Nation, One Voice platform, in which we have the panelists again today. A few weeks ago, we spoke about COVID-19. Is it in Nigeria? What are the possible solutions? But what we have now is a much heated and hot topic. We have, is One Nigeria a reality or a myth? Trust me, there are so many different opinions coming out from everywhere, and I've been receiving them from different groups, or shall I say different people from different regions, and I have to say that I personally have been excited and entertained to see what their comments were. So keep on posting those comments. But let's speak about the panelists that we have, because time is always of the essence. We have, to my left-hand side, we have a man of God, Dr. David King. He is Dr. David King, plural. He is the founder of the Charisma Christian Commission Worldwide in Kaduna. He hails from, we'll say, from Igbo heritage. However, he speaks both Yoruba and Hausa because he resides also in the north. He is currently an impartation leader around the world, and he is the president of the Charisma Bible College in, I presume, in Kaduna. We are most honored to have you. Thank you. And to my right, we have Mr. Emmanuel, and I'm going to try to pronounce the name properly. Danwoode, and he is a human resources specialist here in Canada. He also, I mean, we truly have Wazobia here, though. His dad is Yoruba, and his mother is Delta Igbo. And then to his right, we have the champ. The champ is here. Well, the champ is Jesus. So, but we have the current Canadian cruiserweight Muay Thai boxing champion, Mr. Hassan Hosseini, and he's again, like I said, I want to touch on this because it's important. His dad is Hausa from Kaduna area, and his mother is from Imo State, making her Igbo. So we have a truly, I would say, multilingual and almost multi-ethnic group here today. So let's look at the history of Nigeria. We're going to be covering over 3 episodes this particular topic, because to do it justice, I do not believe you can cover it in 1 hour. I don't believe you can cover it in 1 episode. So we have broken it down. So even if you don't hear some of the questions that you would like to be answered in this episode, post the questions and hopefully we will address them in the next 2 episodes following. Now, we base it on the history of Nigeria. So, and this is a very contentious, as I said, it's a very contentious subject. But we know that the British formulated, if you want to call it that, they formulated what we would now call the country Nigeria. Yes, we did gain independence in 1960, but when we look at the history, how it came about is that the British came in. The first protectorate that they ever formed was the Niger Protectorate. And that's interesting. The Niger Protectorate, why? Because they saw that it had oil, and that was the area that they first formed. They first formed it in 1884. The following year, in 1885, there was the Berlin Conference. And for those of you that don't know what the Berlin Conference was, that was where all the Western powers, or we call them Western powers, Western European nations, came and sat down together and basically said, this is how we're going to carve up Africa. I know, it sounds ludicrous, but that's the truth. That's what they did. They said, this is how we're going to carve up Africa. This part will belong to Germany. This part will belong to France. This part will belong is to Portugal, and this part will belong to England. It is really crazy when you think about the things that the colonialists did in the past. And then in 1900, we have the forming of the Southern Protectorate, which now encompassed the Niger Protectorate and also what was the Southern region. So it would have included everywhere from what we call Igbo land to Yoruba land. And again, not to seem prideful, because it's very important that we understand that even though there are the three main tribes, the Igbos, the Hausas, the Fulanese, which is another tribe, and the Yorubas, or so let's say four main tribes. Those are not the only tribes, right? 60 million people, which is 30% of Nigeria's population, are actually other ethnic groups. So it's important for us to recognize that as well. And in 1914, Lord Lugard formed what we now call Nigeria. What is interesting is before he formed it, the Royal Niger Company, which has now been taken in and integrated by Unilever, which is still in Nigeria. We won't talk about that too much now, but before that time, before 1914, the Royal Niger Company actually sold the territory of Nigeria for £865,000, which obviously in this time would probably be about 40 billion. But what I'm saying is, again, it's interesting how those things work. So what I want to ask, a question that I would like to ask is this. We know that the British formulated what we call that landmass, Nigeria. They lumped together 250 different ethnic groups, people with different cultures, and some of those cultures could be argued that they don't work well in unison. I personally believe that you can work with anyone, but let's say some people will say that you cannot work in unison with certain cultures. I don't agree with that, like I said, but nevertheless, let's base it on that. And brought together multiple religions and said, listen, you people are going to be one, but we're not going to rule you like that though. We're going to operate divide and rule policy. So we're going to create that distrust within amongst you, but at the same time, just to make it easier for us to rule over you, we're going to bring you into one mass. Now, so my question is, for you, the first question is, based on the early history of Nigeria, in regards to the multiple ethnic groups that were brought together by the British, do you feel that Nigeria is a legitimate entity? Can Nigeria be called a legitimate entity, considering these ethnic groups initially did not come forward? Remember, I'm not trying to sway either way. I'm just saying this is a question that's been asked by many. So, could you call Nigeria a legitimate nation, considering that these groups did not come in agreement together and say we want to be together, but were forced to do so by the British? So, who would like to start? Can we start with the man of God?
Well, based on the realities of things from the beginning, the three blocks, the Igbos, Yoruba, and the Hausas, they did not come together to sit down and agree on tangible terms that they will be one nation, but they were just brought together, a kind of marriage. But I think there is a possibility that the nation can thrive together and succeed. So one Nigeria is possible, because we have seen it from the history of many nations across the world, where there are diversities of tribes, cultures, and different people, yet they were able to understand themselves and come up with one goal and purpose, and they are thriving. So one Nigeria is possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a question.
It's a layered
Because
question.
if we're talking about legitimacy, we're talking about law, constitution, right? And I'm wondering if there's any law or constitution that governs colonials. There were no rules at the time, so we can't be talking about legitimacy. So they come, like you said, Berlin Conference. They sat like they came to share food. Okay, you take this place, you take that place. There were no rules.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I don't understand where the word legitimacy comes in here. They came in and then they did what they did. And they saw fit, you know, and it went like that. So if they okay, like you said, we're in Canada right now, right? You have people from all walks of life, from all like different countries, and you're working together. In the States, it's the same thing. From all parts of the world, and you're working together. So I don't really think it's about if you're Yoruba, if you're Igbo, if you're us. I don't really care about those things. What I care about is the structure and the rules and the mindsets and the vision of the country, like where are we going? What's our plan? What strengths, weaknesses? Like Dubai did, or the Arabs did.
Yeah.
Deserts. But you come with somebody who has a vision, it leads the country forward. You know what is that? So
I don't want to sway either way, but I quite agree with that. Mr. Asadi?
Just like he said, it's just a bunch of leaders who came in Berlin, sat down together and carved out a map and said, you know, we take this place, we take that place. Like in my understanding, like my dad told me once, even before the British came, Nigeria was existing. There was no the name Nigeria. There was no, Africa never understood that borderline thing.
Yeah.
Right? You just had kings, emirs and everything. If an Igbo man had a problem with the tribe, they will always send delegates to be able to, like, you know, everyone should live together. Right? There was always respect for. When now you hear Nigeria, they say, oh, Nigeria needs to break in half. Like, sometimes it's just ignorance of people.
Yeah.
Right? Nigeria needs to break in half. What does that mean? At the end of the day, you have to understand that the whole border thing, the whole Nigeria, if you look at the region, it's someone that sat down there and drew a map there. If you really want to be realistic, there's no borderline anywhere in Nigeria. The country belongs to everyone. Like, it's just like in Canada, the Aboriginals, they say it's their land.
Yeah.
Then you tell them that a guy came into a land and discovered the land that someone was living in. Someone was living in already. How does that mean? How can you discover something that someone is living in already? So it's just if you think about it, it's just the whole thing is just brainwashing.
Yeah.
And if humans don't understand what it means to be brainwashed, that thing there, for them to sit down they sat down in Berlin, not to say, oh, let's share this. They sat down saying, you know what, let's find a way we can brainwash these people that will affect them for so many years, and we can take their resources.
Yeah. Wow.
So people have to think about that. Yeah.
Wow. some very deep answers. First of all, Emmanuel, you touched lightly on it, and we're going to ask that question as well. You touched lightly on it on restructuring. I like what you said, Mr. Hussein Hassan. I like what you said as well, because you were actually saying that. Listen, we're really looking at it. I mean, let's be honest. And I've asked this question to many people. Let's look at many countries and how they were formed. What about the UK? I mean, the UK, the English weren't the original people there. It was the Celts. Yeah.
The Vikings took over.
The English came from the Vikings, which is the Danish. They came from the Saxons, which is Germany. They came from the Normans, which is France. And what did they do? They went about on a campaign of conquest. That's what they did. But now what you have is you have very few Scottish that speak Celtic, and the same with the Welsh. But nevertheless, the point is they would see themselves as maybe Scottish or Celtic, Scottish or Welsh, let's say second, but first they consider themselves to be British. They come to an understanding and said, listen, this is how, if we work together, we can be prosperous. That's the same for Switzerland. France, you have the French, the German and the Italians, which in 2 wars, First World War and Second World War, they didn't fight amongst themselves. Even though there was war going on outside their borders, they didn't fight amongst themselves. They didn't say, oh, listen, I'm French, so we're going to fight again. No, they didn't do that. So I agree with you. It's a question. It's ignorance as well, and touching on what you were saying as well, Dr. David Kings, in regards to can we do it? Of course we can do it. We can definitely do it. It's just a mindset that is stopping us. The British knew what they were doing when they gave most of, let's say, most of the control, most of the power to, and again, please viewers, I really hate to use the term North, because it's the same way I don't like to use the term South. When I hear people say the Southerners or the Northerners, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you look in the North, multiple tribes. If you look in the South, multiple tribes. The only thing that unites the North really is a religion, possibly Islam. Yeah. In the South, you might say it's Christianity that unites. But the truth of the matter is that tribalism is so embedded now into people's mindsets that when even amongst born-again believers, if you scratch the surface, you start to see troubles. And that shows that the people need a real mentality change. So my second question, leading on from this, is if Nigeria can work, we presume it cannot work the way it is currently set up. So does Nigeria need to be restructured? And if so, what would that look like to you?
Alright, to me, this is what I believe. It's my own opinion.
Yeah.
Nigeria has been working. Whether you want to say it has been working. No, believe it or not, the country
is working.
What I mean, the country has been working even before the British people came in.
Yeah.
It's just that they came in, and I don't like calling them colonial masters or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
I just call them people who came into Africa to share the ideology of politics. The country has been working for years. How do you, like you said, the north is Islam. That's Kaduna State was occupied by Ariwa. If you want to go back to history, if you go to Kaduna, there's Kaduna North and South. There's a lot of people in Kaduna State who are Christians, but they're born and raised in Kaduna State. But it's because those days the Emir Ariwa is like Ilori.
Even Kaduna itself does not belong to the Hausas.
So
Kaduna as a city
Yes.
belongs to the Bagi people.
exactly.
And the most important thing you need to know, Islam, though slightly majority in the north, but we have a lot of Christians, ethnic groups.
That's what I mean.
So if you look at it, Nigeria has been working for so many years. The only problem we have is the political system.
Mm.
That's the problem. The country is working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just politics in anywhere of the world is issues. Here in Canada, US, believe it or not. Like there's something my mother called me and said, oh, that she had that in Canada. And I saw a video that they said, oh, Canadian government is dashing people $2,000 because of this COVID thing. I'm like, yes, they are, but now the ignorant part is that Nigerians don't know that at the end of the day, where do you think government is going to collect their money from? From that same $2,000 because they go to tax. And if you'll be getting back your tax money next year, you're giving everything to the government. Then what? You're now back to square one. So the problem we have is a lot of ignorance. It's politics. Nigeria has been working for so many years. But if we keep telling ourselves, oh, when will this country work? That is the mindset there. You have to understand the country has been working even before the British came. But the only reason now we're seeing Nigeria like that is because they gave us land in Nigeria and they put that division there. That is the problem.
Okay. Okay, but let me clarify that question then. When I say does Nigeria need to be restructured,
Yes.
there are many things on the ground, even in regards to quota systems and education, the education quota systems, that I don't want to say may favor particular groups, because to me, honestly, if the Nigerian government had implemented the right educational plans, then by now everyone would be on a level ground. So I don't want to say favor. It was to help, to assist, yeah, to assist certain groups to be able to, ethnic groups to raise the standard to where maybe some in the south had reached. Yeah.
Okay.
So but what I'm saying is those things are still in place. Yeah.
The truth is
they're still in
this.
place.
The truth is this. When the three blocks were brought together, the colonial masters were caught. The first thing they wanted is to see that the educated elites from the East do not assume full responsibility of leadership. They felt if they kind of sublet the power to the North, they'll be able to dance to their tune. that was exactly what happened. So, but Nigeria is working, but in another sense, is not working. So, I'm not in the full. I don't agree fully that Nigeria is working as it ought to. So, restructuring is the best. The question is, what is restructuring? 5 things come to picture. 1 is devolution of power. Number 2, it has to do with fiscal federalism. Number 3, it has to do with creation of state police. Number 4, it has to do with local government autonomy. And lastly, it has to do with creation of more states. Now, if these things are properly addressed and put into picture, Nigeria will swing into full-fledged grace to rise up as a nation and probably be the power hub of the world when it comes to sense. Because Nigeria, personally as a person, I've traveled to 85 nations. I've not seen any country like Nigeria. Nigeria is where you find potentials in full-fledged, men that have brain, men that are useful, but only few cliques assume the responsibility of leadership. They bastardize the nation. They destroy even those that are rising up that could help that nation. So Nigeria can work. Now take, for example, the problem we are having right now on ground with the leadership of Buhari. You will discover that there is lopsided appointments. Secondly, there is increase in poverty. And thirdly, there is growing insecurity. Now, if it is structured, if the nation is structured or restructured, you will discover that these things will go down. Now, just 2 days ago, the governors of the northern states now agreed what the former emir, the one that was removed recently, he has been clamoring for that. He said, don't put these young boys to the street, the Almajiris.
Yeah.
They are the ones that will give us headache tomorrow. And they were looking at him as if he was a foolish leader. He has spoken to the nation not once. Everybody, those who have understanding, liked him. But permit me to use this word, the foolish ones hated him, that he's trying to brag about. And probably these are some of the reasons why they removed him. But now, a few days ago, about 2 or 3 days ago, all the governors in the north agreed that they are going to abolish Almajiri system. And that will be better. But then, even if they abolish the Almajiri system, we are still remaining on the same level. Restructuring is the most important, the thing that will work for our great nation. Nigeria is a great country. We can be one, but let restructuring be in place.
I totally agree. In my opinion, Nigeria is not working. Nigeria is in a total mess.
Thank you.
Because we have to be honest with ourselves.
If it's working, it won't be here.
Exactly.
That's one
The
thing I'm
country
saying.
is in shambles. Okay, just look at how different countries of the world have handled COVID-19. Right? So you have countries who have taken responsibility. We have a country like Canada here, where we have the mayor, the prime minister giving us daily, talking to us daily. Right? And then we have a country like Nigeria where Femi Adesina, we come back and say, oh, the president has spoken to us twice in a month. What else do you want? Leaders who don't take responsibility, and they're not even ashamed about it. Ghana, our neighbors, president came out and said, oh, for the next 3 months, full power supply, water supply, no payments. Nobody's going to pay. No relief factors like that. And people didn't clap for it. The government took responsibility, came out, and did something like that. Canada came out and said, oh, you give everybody $2,000. You know, to try and ease the pain of the people. But in Nigeria, We are forcing our president to even come and talk to us.
Mm.
What are you doing?
Begging him.
You are begging him to come and talk to us. Because I feel like so you can't tell me Nigeria is wicked. When people are suffering. Some people say, oh, they're giving palliatives, and they come to give one more loaf of bread. They're giving bread to everybody. Won't they pay rent? And you keep them at home. There's no power supply. There's no water supply. And we say we have a country that is working. And you call that working? People are suffering. People are dying every day. The health system is in shambles. Like total shambles. That's not a country. And like you just said, restructuring is the only way forward. And we have to look inwards, not just as Nigerians, as Africans, and say, looking at our people, how we think, how we are, which system should work for us. That's why I like the Chinese and the Asians. You don't just go out copying the West and copying whatever America does. Because what they have, we might not have. Their strengths might be our weaknesses and vice versa. China has probably said, oh, maybe socialism might be the way for us. A system where everybody uses the same thing. We're not going to have no private hospitals and public hospitals. There's going to be one public hospital. So if you put in a minister of health, you're going to make sure you fix it, because if you don't fix it, the whole family can also die from mismanagement.
That's true.
If you don't fix the school system, your own child will not be educated too. Not in Nigeria where you have the Minister of Education, for instance. You come in, you mess up the whole system, you steal all the money, and then go build a private university or a private school, and then you and all your rich friends go there. And we call that a working country. They don't even get punished. They don't get punished.
They don't.
In some of these Asian countries, death penalty for corruption. That's how serious it is. So if you don't begin to look inwards and try and find a system that will work for Africa and Nigeria as a people, then we will never, I can guarantee you that we will never reach our full potential. Like I said, try to do this at home. That's what looking inwards to produce.
But at the end of the day, don't you feel that it's the citizens in Nigeria that are comfortable with what's happening?
No.
It's all
No,
part of
they-
it.
Let us not
Everybody
get,
has a share of blame.
let us not get too off the focus, because we only have a certain amount of time for this episode. We are going to cover some of these things as we go forward, so let's not get too off focus. What I want to say quickly is you gave some valid and construct examples of how you could restructure. I would say at this point in time, I personally don't necessarily believe in taking power from the center. It works while you have the kind of governance that we've had in the last how many decades.
Are you sure?
Just excuse me 1 second, Emmanuel. It works well in those regards. It works well in that regards because at this point in time, let's put it this way: if you have more power at the centre, it's being mismanaged. But the truth of the matter is that the mentality of the people that we have at the centre are most often the same mentality that we have in all those in the local government areas. It's not necessarily any different. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I said to you before, Emmanuel, there are going to be exceptions of the fact. There is always exceptions of the fact. You might find, you might find people in a few in the Senate. You might find a few in the House of Reps. You might find a few governors. But in general, the truth of the matter is that the same mentality you find there at the top is petered down elsewhere. So what I'm trying to say is that wouldn't necessarily. I mean, we have governors in different states that have embezzled money, and we know this. I don't want to mention names, and they've embezzled money. They've received the money for the state, but they've taken the money, which shows you that these people don't have any love for that. They don't have any love, or they're not thinking about the care and the welfare of the people. I wanted to touch on a point that Hassan made as well. I understand. I think from a perspective, I think I understand what he is saying is that the people, by and large, and I've even heard this from somebody actually who's on one side supporting the other, on the other. But you know, the people by and large somehow get along. If that's what you're trying to say, you have to elaborate for me. But maybe you're saying that by and large, an Igbo man can go, an Igbo man or someone from Edo can go to Imo State. He can set up a business, and he can get along with the community that dwells there. If you're saying that by and large we get on, then I presume that's what you mean by it's working. But if you talk about how things are being managed, then I think we can definitely say
Yeah, what
it's
I mean
not
is
working.
like, if you look at it in the lower sense, yeah, like from the average man in Nigeria, can go to another state, or if you go to the market in Kaduna,
Yeah.
like Igbo women who sell vegetables, they sell everything, like the banana market and everything like that. Those are still ladies who are still adding to the economy.
Yeah.
Or you go to like where they sell cow. You see a guy from Edo there selling cow and everything, living alongside with his Hausa brother.
Right.
So what I mean, like when I say the country isn't working, it's from the political system.
Yeah.
It's those guys who, because at the end of the day, when you look at Nigeria, when people think of Nigeria, they're not thinking about the citizens in the country. They're thinking about the political system. Anywhere in the world, you always think about the political system of the world. So in a way, like, I understand what he's saying. The problem is power, and the guy is there on the top. That's the problem. Is the people there at the top. And again, it's, to me, I feel like sometimes, like, the reason these politicians are misbehaved is because maybe the citizens were allowing them to misbehave. You can't you cannot come and behave anyhow here and people will do
No,
that.
the system is this. You don't live in Nigeria, let me tell you something else. Since I grew up there and I'm still there, it is not the masses that allow the political cliques to do what they are doing. If you rise up, you find yourself killed or in prison, and they do it without mercy. This has frightened the people, the general masses, to the extent that there's nothing, they feel like helpless now. But my major concern is this: if there are things that we need to address in the nation, it has to do with all the blocks, because it is not only the north that has problem. All the blocks have problem. For instance, the northern elites must desist from religious politics. That's the first step. If ever there will be a change in Nigeria, particularly the northern elites, they must desist from politics of religion. Think about it. Somebody who is not educated is the one leading intellectuals now in Nigeria.
Yeah, that's true.
It's an embarrassment. The northern youths also must rise up to admire and pursue education. Because if the system of Almajiri is not destroyed, you have so many of these young men on the street begging, sleeping sometimes in gutter. What you throw into trash is what they will go and pick to eat. And now, anybody that rises up, the politicians in the north, they use these guys to do evil. This Boko Haram that we have now, they were these so-called Almajiris that the man raised them up, gave them weapons to protect his governorship. And when he was, after his 2 terms of service, he was about to go, he could not maintain them, and now they need money. And that's where this group came up. So the youths in the north must rise up to pick up education. All the other ethnic groups in the north, let me say this clearly, all the other ethnic groups, take for example, Adamawa State alone, we have over 126 different tribes. Adamawa State alone. If Adamawa State alone has those number of tribes, and most of them are not Muslims, they are Christians, but who even rule in Adamawa State is a Fulani man. And because he is ruling, the system now started to, the Almajiri system started to eat into the hubs of the entire northern states. And as a result, we have all the mess that we have. The same Almajiri people are the ones that they use to attack the general masses. And they do it because they are ignorant. Coming down to the southeast, in 2014, we had Ndibo pastors gathered, over 6,000 pastors gathered, and we invited educated personnel, intellectuals, to give us lecture on the same subject and things we are looking at now. And we realized that one Nigeria will be our best. If we stand as a nation, we will go very far. But what do you have as a problem in the southeast? The southeast must heal herself, because in the southeast we betray one another. The clique of what we have now, having somebody that is not very educated leading the nation, is because our brothers in the south, just because of political interest, with the mind that if he finish his 2 times, then somebody from there will come up and emerge as the president. They agreed to support somebody who will not be able to lead the nation to be the president. So we need to heal ourselves. There's problem. You have problem in the south, you have problem in the east, you have problem in the north.
Yeah, probably the West.
So there must be, these guys, all these 3 blocks must sit down and look at their major problem, because the entire blocks are sick.
They're sick.
That's it.
And like you just said, there's problem everywhere. And every country, we always have their problems. It's no perfect country.
That's true.
Well, that's why we have systems and structures to control things. I like what you said when you said, oh, we have to, people from the north or the elites must stop from using all these images and all this religion and all these things. But you can't control individual action.
Yeah.
If they believe, if I raise these guys, use them to defend my governorship, how will they? No, they can do all those individual things. But once you have systems in place to checkmate these things,
Very true. Very true.
then you're making headway. That's why the focus must be on systems and structures. And I like what you said when you talked about decentralization. If you take power from the central, you are beginning to solve the problem.
That's true.
So, because let's use Nigerian police for instance. If you Nigerian police is centralized, so a guy from the north is posted somewhere in the west where he doesn't know the terrain, he doesn't know the nooks and crannies, he doesn't know where the bad guys are, and you expect him to do his job properly? He won't.
State police is
And that has gone around all the system, all the systems. So that's why state police has come in, or has to come in. But that's why you see the West now taking initiatives. Okay, we are going to form this Amoteco thing and try and make it work, because we will not allow people to continue to be robbed and so much insecurity. So if you don't decentralize power, let every so-called region sit up. If it's the north and say, okay, let us make this right thing. What do we have? What can we bring in from us and donate to the central called Nigeria? And begin to work that way. The West, same thing. The East, same thing. So everybody,
The South.
do your own work. Become serious. No more free money from oil. That's why they steal. Oh, government allocation. Take your own. So do just think that the next one will come. But it's free money. But when you work for it, you do your agriculture in the north, you do your business in the east and whatever you are doing, and then you donate to the central to function. Now we have a system. Now we have accountability. Because now we all know, let's say in the north we are working, for instance, to bring to the center. There's more accountability because now we know how much you're bringing in, we know how much you send to the center. So you can, and it becomes very clear now that if you don't work, if you are not working and people are suffering, then you are not working. It's like the West are trying to tackle security already. So now imagine what happens when they have the full power to actually look inwards. And that's what they've done. They have looked inwards and said, okay, how do we solve security? And thought, oh, I probably know guys who know guys from this place are the ones that can solve it. And they've done it. So if they're giving more power to do things like that, I'm going to the health sector, I'm going to other different sectors. Other regions you can learn from it. The East liked what the Western government did with Amotekun, and they were looking at their own. You know, so if that shows that we need decentralized power, because at the end of the day, we're looking at the grassroots. It's that the people who need it, that the ones suffering. So you need to bring the power closer to them. When you leave it at the center,
Doesn't work.
it doesn't work. If it just breeds corruption and breeds all this nonsense, they don't really understand it. That there's a northern president, for instance, or some of these ministers who are not even chosen out of, you know, because you ask yourself, who is Minister of Health, for instance? You want to expect someone who has been with medical line, who's probably a doctor, who understands what the health stuff mean. But in Nigeria, they probably do it by geopolitical zone. But it's okay, you're going to push as president. When you get there, these are the lists of ministers. This one's put his son, that one put his cousin. And they don't even really care about who is competent, who can actually do this job. So when you decentralize,
Things change.
things change. So within your region now, nobody's looking at where you're coming from. We are all Northerners. So that's not the issue now. So who is competent within us to do this job?
Can I interject, because we're going to go into a video. I'd like to say that first of all, it shouldn't, and I say this again, you've been to 85 countries, you've seen how those countries operate. Some of them are operating effectively, efficiently, and some of them are probably not. But it shouldn't really matter where, I'll give you an example if you just think about a police commissioner. It shouldn't really matter where an individual comes from, hails from. Even if I'm not from the West, I'm not from Europe, I'm not from a part of Yoruba land, and I have to go into that part of Yoruba land. If the systems are working efficiently, that means the intelligence on the ground is also working efficiently. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So if the systems are working efficiently, it won't really make too much difference where that individual comes from. Now, okay, let me give you an example. Now, let me give you an example. There's always, I'm just going to give a brief example. In the army, for instance, this is all armies, but I'm going to give you an example of British Army. In the British Army, the lieutenant may have gone to Sandhurst. He went to Sandhurst, let's put it that way. And that's officer college. But the warrant officers that didn't go to Sandhurst have more understanding in terms of on the ground many times than the lieutenant has. And he makes use of those warrant officers. So that's the same thing now for that example now. That police commissioner, even if he's coming from the north and the system's already in place, the intelligence gathering is already in place, the people that he has around him very likely are maybe locals or know that area. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So again, it's down to wisdom how he operates with that individual. But I think what we're saying is ultimately that does Nigeria need to be restructured? It needs to be restructured. There's no doubt about it. We will touch on this again in the second episode because it is important to look at again how it can be restructured. I think that's important to look at. But let's look at. I want to show some video that this is this Sadona of Sokoto speaking. I believe it was around 1964 period, and he was actually speaking to a British journalist. And let's just have a look at what he was saying.
One thing I've noticed, Premier, while I've been here, is that Northerners seem to have, I might almost call it obsession about the Igbos. Could you perhaps explain that to me?
Well, the Igbos are more or less the type of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody. If they go to a village, to a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, within a year they will try to emerge as headman of that camp. and so on. Well, in the past, our people were not alive to their responsibilities, because you can see from our northernization policy that in 1952, when I came here, there weren't 10 northerners in our civil service here. Then I tried to have it northernized, and now all important posts are being held by northerners.
Is this policy of filling all key posts in the north solely with northerners and not with other Nigerians a temporary or a permanent one?
In actual fact, what it is a northerner first. If you can't get a northerner, then we take an expatriate like yourself on contract. If we can't, then we can employ another Nigerian, but on contract too. This is going to be permanent, I should say, as far as I can foresee, because it will be rather dangerous to see the number of boys who are now turning from all our learning institutions coming out with having no work to do. I'm sure whichever government of the day might be, it will feel rather embarrassed, and it might even lead to bloodshed.
Doesn't this damage the idea, sir, of all people in all regions in Nigeria being fellow citizens of one country?
Well, it might, but you are, I mean, new to our region, but how many northerners are employed in the east or in the west? The answer is no. And if there are, there may be 10 laborers employed only in the two regions.
Yeah. You heard it there from the video there of the Sadona Sokoto, and still may soul may rest, because you know what I'm sure you all know what happened in 1966. But the reason why we touched on this video is to show that there are, and it's not just, and again I want to make this clear, it's not just elitists that in the north. There are people in Nigeria that have invested interests that don't even want to see Nigeria stand. They don't want to see the masses go past their $2 a day, and that's what we have to look at. So unfortunately, the British, who again, like I said, utilized, let's say, or gave more control to the north because they were operating on a feudal system, and it was far easier for them to control that feudal system or control the north than it would have been for them to control, let's say, the southerners. Nevertheless, what you now find is that the elitists took on that psychology, and they were still operating with it. So we can't, again, we're not going to touch too much on that. I want to go into something else here. In 1966, there was, as we know, there was a coup by Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogu. And when you look at his excerpt, when you look at what he said, it definitely seemed like it was a nationalist coup. However, there were mistakes made, and that's where we have to look at it. Sadona Sokoto was killed. Amadu Bello was also killed. Tafawa Balewa was also killed. Opera in the east, who was the eastern region ruler, was not killed, and Azikiwe was on holiday. Unfortunately, what we now have is a nation outside of Nigeria, namely the British, who already had issues with the South and had issues with the Igbos, now deciding to fuel the flames and make it look as if it was an Igbo coup. Personally, could the coup have been prosecuted better? That would have meant, I mean, when I say I don't necessarily agree with coups, but I'm saying if you're going to carry out a coup, then you have to get all your targets. Because there is that, in a country like Nigeria, where there are those divides on ethnic, cultural and religious divides, you would have to understand that such an action, if not prosecuted properly, could create certain suspicion. If that suspicion has already existed, which we already know that it did. I'm not pro-Biafra, but I do know that the Igbo people very much believe and have believed for a very long period of time, even from the independence, in a one Nigeria. And that's why they move everywhere. Because they believe, oh, anywhere we can go and we can settle anywhere. So now we find ourselves on the basis of a coup that was carried out. Frontliner being an Igbo man. We know that Fajina was there as well, but they will say that, and to a certain extent the rank and file obviously were mainly actually hailing from the north anyway, because that was the general makeup of the army at that point in time. Officers, Igbos were officers, blah blah blah, and high up in the civil service, but the rank and file were northerners. So we know that the rank and file, of which he was leading some of them, they came from the north. However, it was turned to be what we see as an Igbo coup. I want to take this excerpt from Nzogu because it's interesting. He speaks about corruption here, and I tell you, I'm sure that many of you at home and even here in the panel, if corruption was at this level, you'd probably say, oh, it's quite good, we're getting better. So let's just look at what he said. He said, our enemies are the political profiteers, the swindlers, the men in high and low places that seek and take bribes and demand 10% from contracts. Now, they demand 90%. So at that point in time, it just shows you where Nigerians were. As far as he was concerned, that was corruption, and it is corruption, obviously, but not to the level that we are now. He said, those that seek to keep the country divided permanently, those that seek are amongst those 10%, so that they can remain in office as minister or VIPs at least. The tribalists, the nepotists, those that make the country look big for nothing before the international circle, those that have corrupted our society and put the Nigerian political calendar back by their words and deeds. Now, I want to touch on something. Like I said, Sardauna Sokoto, he was not the only elitist that felt that way. And definitely at this point in time, we have elitists from all over the country. Yeah. When they are chopping money, I'm sorry to use that term, chopping money, but when they are coming together to take money that does not belong to them, trust me, they are coming from every region, every ethnic group. So what I'm saying is, those same elitists, whether they be in the north or they be in the south or in the east and the west, they are not interested in the masses as holding on and assuming this power that is rightfully theirs, that's in their hands. And that's why I will touch quickly on what Hassan said. Are the citizens partly to blame? I heard what you said, and I'm not going to pose that question, don't worry, but I just wanted to say that what both of you said is both fair points. The masses are dealing with a system that is prepared, that is not merciful, and is prepared to deal with them any which way. They didn't choose to arrest Nnamdi Kanu, they tried to kill him. Sowore, they threw him into prison, and if there wasn't enough of a fuss, he may have still been in prison to this day. So we know that, and then there's many innocent people that are in prison that haven't even committed the crime. So we know there's a lot of things going on. However, you touched on something as well, Hassan, right? And when we were looking at this whole perspective, is the citizens are partly to blame. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be bold to say this on camera. The elite that suppress the nation, if you want to put it that way, the elite and their security apparatus. Now, I'm not saying I'm calling for a revolution. Maybe I am, but not in the sense of carrying up arms. What I'm saying is the elite and their security apparatus that protect them do not number up to 1% of the country's population. So that means that the 99% of, obviously some of those are children, but let's just say at least 70% are decided to accept the status quo, which is suppression and oppression.
Just to put something there, it's like, you can see what's happening in Hong Kong right now.
Thank you.
China is a communist country. Those people, they don't play with it. You think Nigerian police torture people? See what happened to the Muslims in China. The world didn't hear about it. But look at what's happening in Hong Kong. There's so much people a citizens can take. China don't play with those people. When they decide to deal with you, they will torture you, kill you. They don't care. Look at the man that they said came out with the COVID thing. He went missing. What happened? He came out. So it's like the Arab Spring. Arabs don't play. The uprising in the Arab nations. There's so much things can take. Look at what happened in just a good example. Look at what happened in Turkey when they planned that coup. What happened? The CDC said, you know what? Enough is enough. And what happened? The soldiers had to drop their arms because you can't fight the whole country.
You can't.
But there's, like you said, I left Nigeria when I was 18. But growing up, when I was in school, secondary school, there's one thing I understood. One thing with Nigerians, and when I used to say it, Nigerians, they will say, "Pidgin, we're too comfortable with poverty." Nigerians are comfortable with poverty. No light, won't complain. But okay. The thing is this: the generation right now, like the mindset of our generation is changing. The mindset is changing. There's so much people can take, and that's what we're seeing happening in Hong Kong right now. That's why Syria is the way Syria is, because there's so much people can take. They rather let the country destroy than they keep living like that.
So it brings me to a question. There is a question that we have to touch on, and we have a video for it as well. But we'll touch on the question first. Did the Civil War need to be fought, or was it a British ploy to protect its own interests? I have a video on it, but I want to hear what the panelists are going to say. And the reason why I say this is because before the Civil War, there were different conferences between Ojukwu and Gowon. And one of them, Aburi, of which many people know about, he asked for things that were legitimate and could have been easily given. For instance, the oil that is being produced in a said region, let them receive some of the profits of that oil so that they can develop that region. Now, I think this is important to remember that the eastern region at that point in time included Cross Rivers as well. So what you now call Delta and Cross Rivers, it actually included those areas as well. That was also included in the eastern region. So he was saying, look, the oil is coming from here, but the people are not seeing anything. And then there were a few other things which again could have still been accepted. Apparently, I'm not going on record, but apparently it was thought by Ojukwu that Gowon agreed to those things, those prerequisites. But apparently when he went back, he then said he didn't agree, and then it led to the Civil War. So it wasn't just based on money, but it was based on security and many other things. So my question is, did the Civil War need to be fought, or was it a British, let's say, a British ploy from the beginning to taint a said ethnic group, and then the British also saying, don't allow them to secede, go to war over it because they had their own oil interests in so.
We don't need to fight another civil war. The last one we had was so devastating, and there are several reasons why we don't need to fight civil war. I believe that the nation can come up to terms and agreements that will help herself. But the major challenge that we are having is not even the issue of thinking of civil war. It's the deep-rooted corruption in the entire hearts of the nation. Secondly, as I earlier said, it is this religious politics. Now, the British wanted to overload the nation with the minority, few so-called leaders from the north, who may not even know much about leadership, to lead the nation because they felt a kind of threat from the educated ones from the south and west and east. I mean west and east. That was their major problem. Till date, this is the problem we are having. The major problem we are having is we are politically per se on court. We have obtained our freedom. But till now, we are not mentally, we are still mentally colonized.
Very well said. Very well said.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is where we have great challenges in the nation. The civil war, we don't need to fight it. There are simple things we need to do.
But the question
The
was,
most,
should it have been fought? Did it need to have been fought?
No.
Not. Should
not,
there be
not necessary. We wouldn't have fought that civil war. It wasn't necessary. There would have been a way out. But that's what I'm saying. Because the moment that thing happened, they were pumped from outside, remote controlled. I'm talking about the North now. See, they have cheated you. They have killed your people. If you don't act, you're finished. And they were wise enough, tally up along with the South, the other part of the nation, the West, and they agreed together to make sure they bring the Indians down to submit. So, but it wasn't easy. You remember the last word after the Civil War: no victor, no vanquish. That was it. So the still major problem we are having now, it has to do with these illiterates that we have governing us. And the problem, because even in the North, we are not free. Those of us who are from the North, those who are from the North are not free.
The masses
Because
are suffering.
the house, I mean, the headsmen now, you see, even the Fulani, Fulanis originally, they are not from Nigeria.
No, they're
No,
not. They're
they're
from
not,
Niger, Chad, all
Chad,
those, they're foreigners.
When they came in, they took over the houses in Sokoto, came down to Katsina, them, all these places, they
Lorry,
took over.
all those people.
Photo.
Now, when Usman Danfodio died, that was when Mohammed Bello became the leader. And then he now was so political in mind. He was a kind of aggressive expansionist. He told everyone that was around, you pick up a flag, wherever you go and you conquer, you become the emir there. So Mohammed Ibrahim Zaki took the flag. He came down through Lokoja, then conquered Lokoja aside, conquered Ilorin, established a leader there, came up and he wanted to go to Benin. He was able to reach to Auchi. On his process to go to Benin, that was when the Benin kingdom resisted him. So he couldn't win. So he came back. He got another flag, went to Borno. Do you know that Islam entered Nigeria in 1601? And the first Muslim in Nigeria is Umejunmi. And he was a Kanuri man. Umejunmi in 1601. In fact, the Hausa side, Islam, it took about 200 years before Islam came in there. So when Ibrahim Zaki was going to Borno, he took another flag. The leader then was Maidunama. He was the king of the Kanuri people. So the man asked him, what do you want? Are you bringing Islam or you are after politics? And the guy said, no, he's bringing Islam. He said, well, but we are already Muslims. So what are you looking for? He still fought them. So it was during that battle that this Maidunama sought the help of a Kanibu scholar by name Shehu El Kanibu. So he came, he fought Ibrahim Zaki. Ibrahim Zaki went back reinforced, came the second time. When he came the second time, the former king, Maidunama, died. Maidunama the second now came up. He appealed to that Kanibu scholar again. He was like a kind of Abraham that we have in the Bible. He was a scholar, but he has a lot of Almajiri who were like militants. So that guy again came and fought this man. But he said, if I fight Ibrahim Zaki the second time, that means I should have a place in your kingdom. So he said, okay, you will be the sole administrator. So he fought Ibrahim Zaki and killed him. This is what brought about the change. So what am I saying? This thing is a kind, the West, permit me to use this word, is still using the North to kind of oppress the entire nation. This is the problem that we have. We may say many things. Corruption is there, it has already eaten, because when the other two blocks saw that they have nothing to gain, after all, they wanted, there was war, and they killed a lot of individuals. They said, what do we do? If we can't beat them, let's join the system. That's where this thing now starts. Everywhere now, the corruption is all over. This is the major problem. So if we are going to solve that problem, so I've answered your question, is we need to educate the young ones in the north.
Right,
If they are
100%.
not educated, our problems continues as it has been in the beginning socially.
Yeah. And can I just, before the two of you just, can I just say on the record, again, this is why I said that there are people with invested interests and the elite throughout the country do not want to see an emancipated, strong masses. They just don't want to see it. To me personally, when I see the masses from what we see in the northern part of the country, I feel for them. I really feel for them. At the end of the day, God has created all human beings and He didn't create us to be begging anyone. Yeah? He has given, again, in every area of the country, in every state, there is a plethora of abundant resources. With the right leadership, the right governance, we won't find ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves. It's everything or have a lot, and then the masses have nothing. It should never be like that.
I don't know. As regards the war, like what you just said, I feel like lack of education, in my opinion, caused the war. Because what happened between Ojukwu and Gowon with their burial code? Gowon wasn't educated. Ojukwu took him to Ghana for that burial code. He didn't know what he was signing.
But go on,
He signed their burial code in ignorance. And then came back to Nigeria. He said, Oga, what have they signed? You have literally given this man the power. And he said, really? Oh, it's not going to happen. But you said, you have signed. This one said, it's not going to happen. And then they went to war. So in my opinion, like, if you look at the bigger picture, if Gowon was educated, went to Ghana and saw that Aburi Accord, right there, and you tell him no. So maybe the war would have been avoided.
But yeah, it's true.
In a sense.
This one, I don't really know. I'm young, but compared, like, what I understand about that war, and there's a documentary on YouTube. If anyone wants to go see it, body language is very important when leaders are talking. Look at the body language of Gowon and Ojukwu. Ojukwu didn't look happy in that call. Gowon was a young, I don't know, he was a major or captain there.
Yeah, Major General.
He didn't want to fight that war, 100%.
Yeah.
He did not want to fight that war. To my understanding, he was looking for every way to not go to war with, like a civil war. But if you again look at the body language, Ojukwu, to me, when you look at the way his face was, his body language was, he already knew he wanted to fight. Because number one, to me, that war was all because of oil. And at the end of the day, who suffered? At the end of the day, see, to me, they say one Nigeria. There's one Nigeria. The politicians are one Nigeria. As long as all of them are taking one, that is one Nigeria. But the one Nigeria is that the citizens are suffering. That's why it's not. But there is one Nigeria. The politicians. Look, let me tell you something. The Igbo politician is okay with the Hausa politician. As long as he's okay.
That's it.
So the thing is this: the body language. When you look at leader, look at that body language. Ojukwu already knew he was going to.
No, you are saying the same thing. If I'm smart and you're dumb, right? It's going to look like maybe he didn't really like the idea. It's like
No, 100%.
it's like in Nigeria where you want to buy a shoe that you like. You go to the market. You won't go to them and say, "Oh, fine shoe, very nice shoe." It's going to be increasing the price.
Yeah.
When you nonsense shoe. When you're buying this shoe makes sense. But when you debunk the shoe and this shoe, and you dump it. Yeah, so just offer me silly price.
No, but
It's most likely we agree.
So just to add something.
Yeah.
Ojukwu was a very well experienced soldier.
Very educated too.
Educated. He went to England,
Intelligent
trained
also.
and all that.
Yeah.
Ogun was a young officer. So you have to understand this. When he goes back, it's just like, for example, a president, he has superiors. Not superiors, sorry, he has cabinets, right? People who advise him. As a young officer, obviously he was a puppet. When he goes back,
That's right.
he's a puppet.
That's the word.
You touched on it.
Exactly, he's a puppet.
That's
He's not the one making that. That's why when he went there,
Thank you.
when he went to Ghana, like I said, body language is very important.
Thank you.
He was happy that, you know what, it's going to be peace now. we're not going to go to war in Nigeria.
Mhm.
But when he goes back, remember he has to answer to generals.
No, but he was the head of state.
He is. That doesn't
No, I
mean that
understand.
it's just like, for example, Abacha was the president who was controlling things behind the scene. He's still IBD because IBD put him there. As long as in the military, there's always superior. No, in the military there are always superiors. There's always a rule you follow. He is the head of state. Doesn't mean he's the one controlling everything.
Gentlemen,
It's military rule. It's military, right? And once you are the head of state, you are in control. You are in charge. Do you understand? Go on. Was not educated. He didn't understand what he was saying. Like you said,
time is going. We have to. Sorry. I have to interrupt you, gentlemen. Time is going. We have to get into the next video and the last question. We will touch on this. We can touch on it in the next episode. Trust me, people are at home. They're watching. We don't want to keep them too long. So let's watch this video and then we'll end with the final question on the NSL.
60s, many of Britain's former colonies were being torn apart by civil war. In Nigeria, the federal government were fighting a vicious campaign to stop Biafra from seceding. The British government were secretly supplying the federal side with weapons. Their aim was to protect Britain's oil interests in Nigeria. But the Sunday Telegraph printed an internal government report which exposed this, and there was an outcry. The man who leaked the report was an idealistic young journalist, Jonathan Aitken.
If you had known in advance how much trouble it would have caused, would you once again have passed on that report to the Sunday Telegraph?
Well, my goodness, that's a difficult question. I think the answer really is this, that given that situation of that ghastly war going on, and given the fact that I believed I received that information in good faith, I think it was my duty as a journalist, and indeed as a citizen of this country, to pass on that information. So I think the real answer is yes, I would do it again.
There were protests throughout Africa. Britain was seen as helping the Nigerian government to pursue a policy of genocide. The scandal also split opinion in Britain.
Should we stop sending arms to Nigeria? Whether this would have any effect or not, should we stop sending them now?
Yes.
Hugh Fraser.
To my mind, it's very simple, and the answer is yes. The alternative is, as proposed by people like Woodrow Wyatt and an MP in the Times today, is to keep up with the Russians. This is morally absolutely intolerable. It's politically inept. Your policy is losing out. You're making a fool of ourselves throughout the world. The people are regarding this country with moral obloquy. It's not this merely question. The policy has failed.
If we don't supply arms to the Nigerian government, the Russians are going to go on doing it. The Russians have told the Nigerian government that whatever happens, they're going to see them through to victory. Well, is it wise that we should allow the whole of this vast area, with 52 million people in it, with more oil in it than Kuwait, to fall into the hands of the Russians? I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
The federal government won, helped by the British arms. But the resulting scandal...
So, for those of you at home, you've seen the video. Don't think there's much really to speak about that, and maybe in the future I will, or we will, or I will touch more on that. Again, I don't want to go back too further, but before the Civil War, there was also revenge attacks on Easterners, mainly Igbos, in the programs. And again, through different times in northern cities, there have been, like Kano in 1990, there have been attacks against Igbos as well. However, so that leads us to our question, our final question from myself. However, we do have some questions that have been asked by people that are viewing, so we'll try to answer those as well. But the final question that I'm posing today is it possible for Nigerians to operate as a unified entity, considering that there are 250 different, at least 250 different ethnic groups, multiple cultures, and multiple religions? Is it possible?
Very, very possible. 100%. Because look at Canada, you know, India, Sri Lanka, people with different religions, and the country still coexisting. So it's very possible. See, one thing that is certain is as humans, there's always going to be conflict. But the problem is, the thing is, how do you solve that conflict? It's coming round the round table. So it's, we say, oh, can we live, or we're 250, that's nonsense. It's possible. Black, white, everyone live together. Countries do trade together, so it's very possible.
Yeah, it's possible for Nigeria to run as one nation, but the possibility is determined by certain factors. One, we have to define who we are. Secondly, we have to establish a purpose for the nation. In other words, a vision. The nation must have a vision. Thirdly, we need to know that it is not the North that is the enemy of Nigeria. Neither is it the Igbos or Yorubas. The enemy of Nigeria, please, I say it again with joy, is the West. Not only Nigeria, the entire of Africa. It's just like what China is trying to do now.
Yeah.
So the entire of Africa. So the enemy of Africans is not the Africans. We are still being remote controlled from without. You come in, you are Yoruba, the other guy is Hausa, maybe I'm Igbo. They now come in and now try to say that, why you're foolish? Look at it, this guy is the one leading and he's the one eating everything. Your people are suffering. And then they pump up your mind, get you, thank you. And then probably push in some finances to you to make sure that you cause a problem. And then problem burst out. Then this is exactly where the problem of Africa is, particularly now Nigeria. That's where our problem is. Even this present leadership, the first time, he wouldn't have been able to beat Jonathan. It is still the West that gave away for this present man that is on the throne to come up. So, but Nigeria, we can be one. We will and we can. But it may take us some time, but definitely we are going to get it solved. It is my prayer that the world will remove its hand from Africa. Africa is, that's where life is. That's where almost everything started. So you talk about mineral resources and wealth, it's in Africa. So almost everybody wants to get a piece of it. Yeah. And in the process of getting a piece of it, they try to make sure that we fight one another.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Do you want to,
Yeah, 100%. I feel like as long as there's fairness and justice, we have a good structured system where everybody's happy. That once it's fair and there's justice, I think we can be one.
And you know what, gentlemen, I get the chance to touch on that as well. So I'm going to say wholeheartedly, 200%, I believe that we can operate in unity as a nation. I mean, I haven't gone too much into my background. We'll speak about that, in other broadcasts. However, I want to just leave this little thing with you before we go into these questions from those who are watching. In the Western world, in Nigeria, you may see yourselves as, one might say I'm from Edo, one might say I'm Ijo, one might say I'm this, one might say I'm that. In the Western world, at best, they see you as a black person. They don't know, the majority of them do not know, even if you give your name, they wouldn't even know if you were Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Edo, Kanuri, they just wouldn't know. And that is at best. At worst, they see you with a derogatory name, derogatory label. So I would say again, for me personally, when I'm in Nigeria, I don't, even when I'm outside of Nigeria, I just see a Nigerian, I don't care where he's from, I'm so happy to see him. My wife she will testify, I'm just so happy to see them because it's a Nigerian. That's where we need to get to. We need to get to that place, especially because we consider ourselves to be very religious or spiritual. If we believe we're religious or spiritual, then we have to know that we have one creator and he created all human beings. So that is now on you. The onus is on you now to be able to operate with other human beings, not just based on culture or tongue. Yeah. And I'll just say quickly, I'll just say one thing that I said to my wife as well. I said, if it's based on culture, and this is not a slant to anyone who believes in Oduduwa or even those who believe that there should be secession in other areas. But what I would say is that if it's based on tongue and culture and the food you eat, then why do you find people from the same ethnic group fighting, killing each other, and divorcing each other? Surely, if you eat what's amala and iwedu, and you're both eating amala and iwedu, and you're from the same tongue speaking Yoruba, surely you should be in unity. If you're not in unity, it shows that it's a human condition and not down to ethnic group. So we have a few questions from the viewers. We'll try to take them. Okay, I thought when I do. Is there a way to? You can just read it to us. You can just read it to us, please.
This is from Olajide Olabode. It says, yeah, agreed. The elites. So I should. So we need to visit the foundation of Niger. And if we're talking about restructuring, what is the first step to achieve that? And which arm of government will give it the first shot? No government is ready to take responsibility.
Okay, gentlemen, does anyone want to start, or can I start? Can I start with that?
That's what we're praying for. That's what we're praying for. That visionary leader that would come in and say, okay, let's restructure.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't know, like South Africa, for instance, shambles, there are other problems, and it just took Mandela to come in for 4 years and be like, okay, let's be at peace, let's be one. One man drove his vision from the top all the way down to the people, and we're able to do it. Right. So I feel like that's what, and that's why it has to happen. The restructuring has to happen for us to be able to drive a vision for Nigeria.
First of all, can I would say that first of all, that question is quite loaded. It is quite loaded. I'm seeing different questions here, but based on the question, what is the first?
Which arm of government?
Yeah. What is the first step? Yeah. What is the first step, and which arm of government? I don't even want to look. First of all, before you restructure, and I'm going to go. Yeah, I'll say this. Before you restructure, the key thing that we need to face on the ground right now is that we have approximately 200 million people who many do not know the potential of Nigeria. The only potential they seem to base it on is oil. No, oil is far. Just if you have an opportunity, go and look at every state in the federation. There is a plethora. Gold, diamonds, cocoa, rubber, gemsite. I mean, literally, I'm not joking, Nigeria is self-sufficient. We can close our borders and just export. So my point is, before we speak about restructuring, we have to get the people changed, get their mentality turned around to the point that they understand that it's worth restructuring.
That's what I said.
Yeah. How? Okay.
How do we do it?
What you said, change the mindset. Yeah. You don't restructure. You see those old men that group, they need to remove all these men.
How?
I don't know, but they need to just retire. They need to go and relax. Because that's the question. How? Number one, how? They should resign. There's nothing wrong with resigning, and let someone who's like maybe 40 something to come and win.
You're Nigerian.
I'm Nigerian.
Do you think they will resign?
That's the problem. They will not resign, but how? And the only way is to fight the government. I'm telling you, the citizens, that's the only way. But I know I'm not Nigerian.
But we have the arm of government, the Senate,
the easiest way
and the House of Reps
to start, as I earlier said, is to educate them.
So how do you want to educate a 80-year-old man?
No, I'm not talking about the elderly ones. If you educate the young ones, the young ones from the north will be the ones to arise to fight the elderly ones in the north. If somebody from the south comes to fight the elderly ones, they will deceive the young ones and say, you see, they want to kill us so that they will kill you also. That's where the problem is. So you have to educate the young ones in the north. Right now, they are being used like goats.
Yeah. But the question is still how.
It's possible. How
Yeah.
is this? When Jonathan was in leadership,
Yes.
listen to me. The schools he built in the north, he did not build them any other place. He built schools in the north. But when this system came in now, everything was scattered.
So the thing is that what arm of government should start? Is it from?
So I think so that's what I was going to get to. If you're talking about the arm of government, I'm not talking about Senate or House of Rep. From this perspective, you have to don't even think about. It has nothing to do with law enforcement. It's not about law enforcement. This is about education, and this is about information.
Nice.
So that is the first. In fact, that's the most powerful weapon you have in Nigeria right now. If you really are leading a visionary movement, you need to re-educate people. Once the people, see, for instance, now I said the power is in the hands of the people, but the people don't know they have the power. But once they understand they have the power, things start to change. So education and information, which is the same thing. So if you say arm of government, it's the movement.
Well, in the south and west, the people know that they have the power. In the north, I am from the north.
Yeah.
I live in the north.
Yeah.
They do not know. Now, when Boko Haram came and President Jonathan then rose up to tackle the issue, all the northern elites rose up. You are killing our sons. And now it is when the problem is there, it is their son now that is the leader, and they can't talk. And yet they are not doing anything. But by the way, they know those who are fueling them to fight the nations. So you just have to educate them. When the young ones in the north are educated, they will rise up and tell them, shut up. Our problem is not Igbos. Our problem is not the Yorubas. Our problem is you. You are the one joining us together. And then they won't do it.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. If those guys have the information, that's education already.
Thank you.
So they need to have access to that information, re-educate themselves, change their mindsets, and then the change can come from there.
One nation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
why.
if they don't get, yeah, you can start to educate them. Okay, good luck trying. Trying to get rid of all the whole imaginary stuff, building schools, building everything. What is the system to do? Democracy came, brought him out, and brought in someone very, very incompetent. And then we're making progress this way, and then we went back.
I think we're making progress too when we are going.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, God did very well. But as I earlier said, you see, when we talk about the restructuring issue, the first thing, we have answered these questions indirectly in our speech. The major challenge is that let us know who are we? What is our problem? Where are we going as a nation? You define these things, the problem is solved. Our enemy is not your Hausa.
Yeah.
Our enemy is not Yoruba. Our enemy is not Indigo. Our enemy is without. They are remote controlling and bringing us to fight each other. That until we identify this and know it, we will not get out.
That means even we as a nation need re-education.
Thank you.
That's true, yeah.
You need re-education. You need to know what's going on.
And on that note, gentlemen, this is where we're going to round off. We're back to the studio. You've heard it all from the panelists. Do you know what? To be honest with you, I have thoroughly enjoyed this segment, and I can't wait till next week and the following week. I'll continue to say what I keep on saying. That is that Nigeria will be, not can it be, not may it be, not if it, no. Nigeria will be an economic superpower. The days are dwindling for those colonial powers or ex-colonial powers, and even for those that have invested interests that have suppressed and oppressed the people for so long. Their days are dwindling. I can guarantee you there is a movement coming, and it's not just one nation, one voice. but there is a movement coming with power, and I'm assured and I know that the people will be gathered, they will be educated, they will be given the information, and they will unite behind that movement, and I can be sure that they will forge a greater, more prosperous Nigeria. So on that note, we can't wait to see you next week. If you have any further questions, please post them to the page, and whoever is on the panel at that point in time, we will try to answer them at the end. But thank you so much for your participation. We can't do it without you. Thank you. God bless you.